Welcome to Lock It Down Sports. I'm your host, Locke Hoover. You can follow me on Twitter at Lock It Up Media. That's Lock It Up Media on Twitter. You can also check us out at E5280 Sports. That's E5280 Sports. And today on the show, two things the SEC and the Big Ten are trying to bring to college football. We're getting into UGA, Texas, and then the Tennessee-Alabama matchups. But first, I want to get into this, and that was a thriller and a nail-biter all at the same time. More of a nail-biter, shall I say, than a thriller in Knoxville on Saturday, last Saturday that is, and that was the Florida-Tennessee game. Whew. That's all I got to say. I mean, the first quarter, I really liked the drive, the way it started for Tennessee and Nico. It was going fast, smooth passes up into the fumble. Of course, yeah, that kind of killed things and screwed things up immediately. When they were driving, they're at least in a field goal range right there. And that gave me some signs of hope of, okay, because you didn't really see that at all during the Arkansas game, at all. And I was like, okay, all right, well, the fumble sucks. Not good, obviously. The turnover's never good, obviously. But the way they were getting things rolling, it's like, okay, this offense is starting to look back to what we're used to, what we expect. And that's kind of what I was looking at. Obviously, they didn't score in the first quarter, but the offense was in rhythm. And it looked back like the UT offense. And then we get to the third drive, and you have 3 straight sacks on Nico on that third drive. And it makes me wonder what has happened to this offensive line. You're supposed to be this veteran, experienced offensive line, and 3 straight sacks. Nico's going to need some help. Offensive line. He's a young quarterback. Yes, he's a highly recruited. He's got all these Heisman tabs already as a redshirt freshman. But did you hear what I just said? Redshirt freshman, guys. Give him some help. So that was kind of a rough first quarter there. So we move into the second quarter, and once again, it's been a theme all season. The defense, the Tennessee defense, makes a big stand in the red zone to stop Florida. And it's like, wow, this defense really is real. Saving the offense is bacon right now, without a doubt. We've seen it all year, actually. And then Tennessee's back on offense, and we see the first thing we haven't seen in a while in the few games for this Tennessee offense. We didn't really see much of this in the Oklahoma game. Definitely didn't see any of this in the Arkansas game. And that's a big play. 8:08 in the second. Nico missed Squirrel White on a big play. Absolutely big play. Overthrew it, bad throw. And that really hurt the offense at that point, the way it was struggling, because it's explosive plays is what really makes this offense go and makes this offense turn. Huge miss right there, especially how the offense was struggling. A big play there, you break one, boom, okay, you're cooking, right? Once again, move into the other drive, additional drive. 6:43 left of the second quarter. On this same drive, another missed throw on a second big play opportunity that hurt the drive once again. That's 2 big plays that were misthrown. Once again, unfortunate. The only thing I did like is they're trying these plays. You didn't see this in the Arkansas game at all. You didn't see this in the Arkansas game, so it's okay. We're having more trust in Nico to make the play, to make the throws. And I think that was some of the key. I've read articles and I've seen where SEC coaches have said, or teams that have played Tennessee said, yeah, they're definitely trying to protect Nico, as they don't want to completely air it out yet. And how this offense likes to operate, they're trying to lean a little bit more on the defense. And we've seen that all year, which is very true. We've seen that. Lesser big, explosive, deep pass plays, trying to protect Nico and lean on the defense has been really good, which has been really good, and it's true. Then, still in that second quarter, the defense once again makes a play with 3:14 left before half. James Pierce strips that fumble on the 1 yard line, 1st and goal, which would have put Florida up to 0. And you can say, oh, Florida, that's a Florida miscue. No. Well, yes, that's happened, but Tennessee created that fumble. James Pierce goes in there. If you go watch it, if you're watching the game or watch replay, James Pierce is stripping that ball out of the quarterback before his knees down and recovers it. And the ball's recovered. Strips it out. That is a forced fumble to the T, not just a fumble that happened. And that is all James Pierce. And he created that fumble and that turnover. So once again, huge. Florida could have made it 10-0 before half. Instead, still 3-0. After that, Tennessee's driving, and it's 4th and 2 on their own 10. With about 2 minutes left before half, and they go for it. I go, whoa. They're just trying to get something going here, because that's a surefire 3 points minimum at worst if they don't get that. On a 4th and 2, Heupel rolls the dice, says, let's go. They get the first down. And now I'm thinking, okay, here we go. We're about to go fast. I know you're still inside the 20, but you just went for it on 4th and 2 on your own 10-yard line, basically. Can Tennessee pay it off? Can they pick up the offense? Can they hit some big plays? Can they stretch the field? Okay, here we go. Let's go. Let's get in scoring position, at least a field goal before half, right? Nope. You throw a pick. Minute 22 left. And I was fine with the play call. Just you can't throw it in double coverage. You absolutely cannot throw it in double coverage, as Nico just made a bad throw. And obviously you can't do that. They're trying to stretch it a little bit, but he stared down his receiver, threw it in double coverage. No. And then another thing with the play calling decisions, I thought were kind of interesting for Josh Heupel. As it's back Florida's ball. They're driving. Granted, they get a short field after the pick. Tennessee still has some timeouts left. And Florida's in field goal-ish range. And I don't understand why Tennessee didn't call the timeouts. They use their timeouts to call with Florida's driving to potentially get the ball back. Because Tennessee, you just saw that previous drive was aggressive. 4th and 2 on your 10, and you go for it and you get it. I know you want to try to make something happen, create something, So use your timeouts because it was third down, and you would have potentially given the offense some time to score. You would have had around 50 seconds left. Around 50 seconds to make some plays, to actually hit a big play and get in field goal range, or heck, even score. You bust one completely loose and you score. So it was an interesting decision there and kind of surprised me. Fortunately, the defense was able to hold again as Florida missed the field goal. They're up 3-0. All this to say it could have been at minimum 17-0 or even 21-0 at half for Florida. Instead, Florida goes in 3-0 at half, and it's like, wow. Did not expect a 3-0 game at halftime at all. To make matters worse, Tennessee only had on 30 total yards of offense. That's how dreadful that first half was for Tennessee. So as we move into the third quarter, come away with some points on the third drive, that first drive in the third, you come away with points. You have to, right? Even if it's just a field goal, and that's exactly what I'm thinking. Like, all right, make a statement, come out here, get going, and come out with some points. Nope. What'd they do? 3 and out. And it's tough. It's tough to swallow. Tennessee started to figure it out finally with Nico and the offense on their touchdown. You're like, oh, they changed some things up. They made some adjustments. They were moving Nico out of the pocket. They were putting him on the move, bootlegging him, rolling to his left, rolling to his right. And that really helped the offensive line not having to protect him as long. And it also allowed Nico to be a threat to run. He's not a burner by any stretch, but he can get first downs with his legs. He's a threat to run, not a burner. And once again, after that touchdown, back over to Florida, 2:47 left in the third. Tennessee's defense steps up with a pick at the 20-yard line. Had to have it, had to make the play. And I go, they've got to score. They absolutely have to score to pay this off. Obviously, you want the touchdown. They managed the field goal. Okay. All right. Field goal. Manageable. And then we move to the fourth quarter. Defense makes the stand again. As it was on their score, Tennessee score in the fourth, it was all field position. Tennessee's defense, their special teams to make the punt, and then the recovery, and then that touchdown. I drawn on the 30-yard line. That's all it was 30-yard line. Tennessee made it up 17-10 with 9:42 left. Obviously, we know how it ended. Florida was able to score with about 30 seconds left in the ball game. Went to overtime. Florida couldn't connect on the field goal. Tennessee said, don't worry about the field goal. We're just going to punch it in for the touchdown for Dylan Sampson. So that's how it ended. Thank goodness Tennessee was able to pull this out. But I got some questions. Where did the explosive plays go? Where did this offensive explosive plays go? That's really their offense. Running the football between the tackles and stretching the field vertically, connecting on big plays. They tried 2 in the second, back to back, and couldn't convert. My question is this a line issue or just a Nico issue? On those big plays, Nico had time. He just couldn't connect on the throws. And then we saw other issues of the offense, it being the line not being able to block and protect Nico. I think it's a combination of both. Watching this game, they only had 4 big play attempts in the game, and they did not convert on a single one. Yet, would this offense look different? Would the numbers look different if they converted on 2 of the big plays? Of course, absolutely it would be. But it's been 2 games now that you haven't been able to connect on the explosive big plays, passing attempts. And they've all been Nico. It hasn't been the receivers. It's been overthrows, bad areas, bad spots. That's really what it's been. And you're going to absolutely have to connect on some of these big plays against Alabama. And we'll get to the Alabama-Tennessee game here a little bit later. But you're going to have to connect. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And we're going to see on Saturday in Knoxville if Tennessee's able to do this. Now, SEC and the Big Ten are in conversation. There's not much more to it yet outside of conversation of them creating what basketball has, the challenge, where it's these conferences agree to go up against each other in non-conference games, ACC, Big Ten, SEC, or ACC, Big 12, SEC, Big 10 challenges, and where they agree on different matchups within the conferences. And I love it. I do. I think it's a good idea. I've talked about this on some of my previous podcasts and ideas and that sort of thing. I'm always a big fan. I'm definitely a big fan of this. But let it be with all conferences, not just SEC, Big 10. Have a little rotation system here. It's SEC, Big 10 one year, Big 12, ACC, and then you rotate it. SEC, Big 10, ACC, SEC, Big 12, ACC, Big 10, so on and so forth. I mean, I think this would be great for college football without a doubt. Definitely help the playoff committee with decisions. Who's who, where they all stack up on each other. And from a SEC Big 10's perspective, I think they find it profitable 2 ways. One, the money agreement they would receive if they lock into this agreement / challenge, whatever you want to call it. Scheduling matches, whatever. I think the second is how much it would help their schedule when it comes to the playoff and the strength of schedule. That's a big thing. It's more apples to apple comparison. It's a little bit easier. And if schools cannot want to opt out, I would let them. So what I mean by that, let's say like a Florida or South Carolina, who've obviously big non-conference rivals and typically good schools. Obviously, Florida State's down this year. I know Florida State's down this year. But typically, Florida State's usually a good school in the conversation. Then obviously for South Carolina, you get Clemson. So those schools like that want to opt out year by a yearly thing. That's fine. Why not? I think another thing too, some of the talk and some of the write-ups have been I think it would help the SEC potentially if they went to a 9-game conference schedule. So then you've got 3 obviously non-conference games. One would be with the Big Ten, and then your 2 other, your 2 other games. Which is fine. A lot of times right now you're seeing 8 conference SEC games, or you're seeing obviously 8 conference SEC games. Schools playing a good non-conference school. So that's your 9 solid games, and then your 3 easier games. It's whatever either way. But I think this would be a good setup for all 4 of the Power 4 conferences to get together and say, you know what, let's do this. So that's the good the SEC and the Big Ten are trying to cook up. Here's the bad the SEC and the Big Ten are trying to cook up, and that is the SEC and Big Ten are trying to get 4 automatic bids each for the playoffs. So 8 of your 12 schools would be SEC and Big Ten. I think it's a terrible idea. Terrible idea. And you've heard me talk, I'm an SEC guy. There's no denying that. There's no hiding that. It's been pretty obvious. You've been listening to this podcast. It's just like business sense. Monopolies are never a good thing. Same thing in this case. I mean, let's be honest. It was the money. But part of the reason for the 12-team playoff was to allow different entry points for these schools and a chance to win a title for different schools. Is it kind of wonky in some ways? Yeah. Where the Big 12 probably shouldn't get an automatic bid based on their conference. And you look at other schools and other conferences, and it's like, oh my goodness. An automatic bid school might have 2 or 3 losses in the Big 12, how it shakes out. Maybe 4, heck. They all beat each other up because there's no one dominant team. But one of those teams are going to have an automatic bid, automatic qualifier. Also, too, with this SEC Big Ten proposal, I don't think these 2 conferences need any more help winning a title. Since 2006, okay? 2006, only 3 schools not in the SEC or the Big Ten have won a title. And it's really only 2 schools. But 3 years since 2006, and that is Clemson in 16 and 18, and Florida in 13. Florida State with Jameis Winston and Dalvin Cook and everybody in 2013. That's it. Since 2006, 3 or 2, actually 2 non-SECs or Big Ten schools have won a title. How much help, more assistance do they really need outside of it being more money going to the schools because of playoff bids? Also with this way it won't completely phase out the G5 conferences, is it gives them an opportunity, and it gives them a chance to get in. Let me phrase that. There's always going to be a G5 or G4 school that gets in. But it makes them feel better of, you know what, we've got a real chance because whoever the best team is automatically getting in this playoff. So, not a good thing. They've already controlled the playoff committee and the playoffs anyway, and the other conferences agreed on it, where SEC and Big Ten each get three automatic bids. and are allowed up to 4 schools. So they get 3 automatics anyway. So they're controlling it as it is. So I don't think that would be a good thing for college football, because you do like the diversity and the different conferences trying to potentially represent. Now, it's another week in college football. We've got big games every week. No exception this week, as we've got Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Tennessee. I think what the big thing to me is going to be what to watch for is if Georgia gets off to a slow start, gets down and behind, are they gonna have enough to get back in it? I mean, they have in every game except for the Alabama game, and we saw what happened in the Alabama game. Obviously, Georgia's down big, and then the second half they flip a switch. But they just couldn't quite get over the hump as they dug themselves into too big of a hole. And Texas offense has been dynamic. Absolutely dynamic. They've looked to me like the best school in the country this year. Sure, you make it case for Oregon, that's fine. Oregon, Texas, that's fine, whatever. But a big game, obviously, in Austin. Could decide who's going to the SEC championship game. Potentially. And I don't think it doesn't have any effect on the playoffs. It doesn't, not at all. Both these teams are getting in. I believe even if Georgia loses with 2 losses, and their losses are Texas and Alabama, they're in. You think the committee's keeping out Georgia with 2 losses to Alabama and Texas? Absolutely not. They're still in. They might be 7, 8, 9, 10 seed, whatever. Tell me one school that's like, cool, we're the higher seed and we got a home game, but we still got Georgia. That's not a good matchup for them, and they would not be comfortable with that at all. I don't think it's an elimination game for Georgia if they lose to Texas. But then they'd have to win out. Alabama, Tennessee, on the other hand, I think the exception is going to be the key is going to have to be containing Milroe. Keep him contained in the pocket. Don't let him get outside the pocket. Keep him contained. Yeah, he's going to run. He's going to take off, but you can't let him get that big play. Interesting enough, too, how are they going to handle the noise? How's Milroe going to be handling the noise? He's not played at Knoxville. You saw how loud it was in the Florida game. You saw how loud it was 2 years ago for Bryce Young in Knoxville. Milroe hasn't played at a big, loud stadium in his career, surprisingly. Hasn't played in Knoxville. Hasn't played in somewhere like LSU either. 2 examples. Big games, and I think this very much could be an elimination game for either one of these 2 schools. Two loss Tennessee team losing to Alabama and Arkansas, and they still got Georgia coming up. If they lose to Georgia, obviously it's done. They lose to Alabama, beat Georgia, maybe. But very well could be an elimination game for either of these 2 schools, with obviously Alabama losing to Vandy and then losing to Tennessee. That Vandy loss, although Vandy's better and improving, it's still still doesn't look like a okay to good loss. No loss is good, but there's better losses than others, obviously, right? I mean, and then schools you already that are pretty much out of it. Ole Miss, they're done, basically. Lost to LSU and lost to Kentucky already. They're pretty much done. Texas A&M still in it. LSU is still in it to get a playoff bid. So there's still schools still in it, still have opportunities if they take care of business. It's one of those, we'll see what happens, obviously. It's going to be another fun day in Knoxville. It's going to be loud. How are they going to be able to handle it? And it's going to be another SEC battle, as they're never easy. And that's what we've got. It's going to be another fun weekend because it's college football. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Lock It Up Media. That's Lock It Up Media on Twitter. You've been listening to Lock It Down Sports. I'm Locke Hoover. Talk to you next week.